Well, good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to a very interesting stream we have tonight here. Leaders Under Pressure. Of course, we have Mario with Mr. Ma. Mario, you can tell us about your channel in a moment. We also got AJ from PTE. He will tell you all about his channel. And of course, from Fernando from Mube. And I'm Alex with Reporterfy Media streaming on Tiger Paw, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Let's go with you, Mr. Moy. You can tell us, Mario, all about you, and we'll do the round, and we'll get around to AJ in a moment.
Hey friends, Mario Cavallo here. Great to be with all of you. Um, I just finished about a 12-day trip for the first long holiday trip here in China. Like many people all over the world, not doing a lot of traveling the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Saw Alex in Chongqing, went down the Yangtze River cruise, and all I have to say is China's fabulous. China's the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, and civil country on the planet, and that pisses so many people off. What can I say, And
Fernando.
yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Alex and Mario and AJ. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Fernando. My channels, I have two. One is Fermove, which is this one where I'm a little bit more political. And I have another one called Are We There Yet channel where I am traveling around the country in an RV all over China, making beautiful cultural content for you guys to enjoy. And but I decided to host it on this particular channel because we are going to be very political today, I suppose. And I just want to let people know that China gets castigated for doing things differently. Poverty alleviation done differently, terrorism done differently, terrorism control done differently, COVID done differently. Absolutely everything is done differently, and that's what they castigated. So that's what we are going to be sharing today about what the other people do around the world.
Well, thank you for that, Fernando. And AJ, tell us about you. This is kind of the first time we've done kind of like a virtual roundtable online here with you, AJ. And what a pleasure it was to be on your show the other night. Tell the audience all about you and what your channel is all about. The floor is yours.
Sure, thanks for that, Alex. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it was a pleasure having you on my channel for the first time. You'll be glad to know you were my second ever guest. The first one was more of like a test, really. I was just wanted to see if it works or not. But yeah, it's a great pleasure to be with you today. With the great Firmbui, is it?
For
Firm,
movie, yeah.
Firmove, and Mr. Mar as well. I do follow your channels, guys. I have seen a lot of your chats, which I completely agree with. And Alex has been my major long-term admirer. I've seen him from the beginning of the first days I was on YouTube. The first ever video about China I saw was from Alex, and the reason I'm here, I think a lot of people in my channel know me. I work for the government. I'm a civil servant. I work for their IT department, and I got quite disillusioned over the years, especially when the Trump started this ridiculous trade war. And me living in UK, overnight, British government changed their stance on China, just literally overnight. I mean, I used to have a Huawei phone, and Boris kicked out obviously Huawei and kicked out a lot of investments around UK. Any Chinese investments in any infrastructure, they kick them out. For example, nuclear power plants. For example, there's a chip company called Newport Chips, which Chinese have got an investment in. They've kicked them out of that as well. So literally kicked out every single Chinese investment, anything to do with the Chinese. They have been very vocal, very anti-Chinese, and I just couldn't understand it. And every day I go to the office, there's a lot of anti-Chinese stuff, and the Chinese will do this, Chinese will do that. I just found it really annoying. Obviously, I couldn't speak up at work. I did used to meet up with Boris and Liz Truss in the elevators sometimes, and yeah, I just feel that this is a platform for me to actually speak my bit and tell the world how I really feel, and yeah, so my channel has grown since. I've been open for about 5 months. It's got about 22, 23K. So I'm still early days. Again, I talk a lot of things about China. I talk about Russia as well, and mainly around anything around the world. I am mixed race, so I have kind of various different cultures inside me, so I do tend to know about law of the world. And I've also been to China as well. I've traveled around China for a year. I've lived in Chongqing, lived in other major cities around China as well. So yeah, hopefully I will be coming back to China once the COVID stuff is finished, once they've opened up their borders again. So
Well,
hopefully I'll be back.
we definitely welcome you. I think everybody knows this panel is really ready to get into it tonight, because I'm certainly ready to get into it tonight with you guys. Anyway, these fine gentlemen decided to have me kind of keep them intact here so we don't talk over each other today. So if it seems like sometimes I'm getting in there to keep them apart because we got so much to talk about tonight, that's just because we respect you, the viewers, and we want to give you a very, very clear and clean message from this live stream that we're doing tonight. So we have titled it World Leaders Under Pressure. Do I have any takers on this panel who wants to get this ball rolling?
Can I side with a French country?
Absolutely. Go for it.
My country. We are changing for the first time in our history to a leftist president. And that has got America in a lot of trouble because they're losing grip on Latin America. Now there are 15 leftist presidents in Latin America. That's their own backyard. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to mention that for those of you who don't know, I'm from Colombia, and we just elected Gustavo Petro, and that's got the whole country, the whole bunch of elites, and all these corrupt politicians in a tizzy. So let's see what's going to happen. We're relatively influential in Latin America, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on in that corner of the world. But back to you guys.
Gentlemen, follow up to that.
I'm happy to talk about the British situation in UK, Boris, Liz Truss, why I think Liz Truss will be the next Prime Minister. But I also want to talk about Boris and the reasons for his downfall as well. And yeah, I can probably focus on that. Back to you guys.
Okay. So, gentlemen, I just want to throw this out here. Look at the leaders that have been replaced lately, not in the last couple of years, but lately. Australia has changed their government. We've seen a change of government, of course, in the United States on the last election. Boris has been given the boot. What else have we got here? We had a catastrophe happen in Japan just a little under a week ago, something like that. And we are seeing governments being changed around the world. Funny things are happening all over the world. I think they're intertwined, not only in the governments, but I'm a stock market guy. And I had a few people kind of laugh at me a few months ago when I said, look out, we're going down. And I'm just on the side of my eyes here having a look at the market. And it's going in the direction we thought. So it's nice that we got a great group here tonight. And a lot of people know us on this. This is fantastic. Gentlemen, what got us into this mess?
30.
Mario?
Whoa. Okay, so there's nothing. Okay, I'm going to give you the real answer to that question. The real answer to that question is nothing current. Right? Because people would say, oh, Trump got us into this mess. Biden got us into this mess. Putin got us into this mess. UK got us into this mess. Blah, 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 blah. The Hong Kong conflict set it up. All these current things got us. No. What got us into this mess, okay, was the year, I'm approximating, okay, we're just going to go back 20 years, 22 years. The year 2000 and pre-2000, when Bill Clinton repealed the Glass-Steagall Act and allowed banks to invest with depositors' safe money. We'll talk about the rural banks in Hunan in a moment, okay? So this was in the United States of America. You were a bank in America. You were responsible for your depositors' money. You were not allowed to And this makes perfect sense. I got my money in my safe bank account. I don't want to worry about that. My money's in my bank account in America. Well, you, the bank holding my money, were not for decades allowed to speculate with my money. Makes sense, right? The banks were not allowed to be in the stock market. And that's what Glass-Steagall was. Clinton repealed it, okay? And that was, the moment that Clinton repealed it, I mean, it was like letting the wolves out of the cage, the financial wolves, the wolves of Wall Street, okay? At that moment, my father, God rest his soul, I was at the time, in my 30s, and he and I back then were talking about how we could see the direction of the United States. The fact that, first of all, even back then, it wasn't really much of a democracy at all. And it was moving headlong out the gate toward being a plutocracy. Every decision that they made, including the one that I just mentioned, which was the first one, was all about benefiting the wealthy and ignoring the middle class. And ever since then, people have gotten their precious, worthless freedom of speech to protest and complain and write a million books. And what has it changed? Nothing. They've spent 20 to 30 years now plundering the economy and plundering the society. And the pandemic served only as a catalyst to make it even worse, where the people who were like 100 guys who were worth $8 trillion, that was already sinful beyond belief. And the pandemic caused the guys with $8 trillion to be worth 3 trillion more. They're now worth 11 trillion. Can you imagine an individual people being worth not $1 billion, not $10 billion, not even $50 billion, but worth 100, 200 billion dollars when you can't even fathom $1 billion in the first place? That's when this all began 22 years ago. And they've sent us all down the toilet, man.
Mario, I mean, thank you for that grand introduction. always a firecracker right off the start. I just want to say thank you. We have over 300 people here on the live streams. Now, we need a little bit of help from our community here. We have some new channels here. We have PTE, AJ. We have Fermube, Fernando, Mr. Ma, of course, and my name is Alex here, and I'm streaming on Tiger Paw. Pierre, I see you in the Pierre is a subscriber of mine there. I see him in one of the chats there. So if everybody can share everybody's channel, we grow together, we rise together, and we have the voice together. So all these communities, if you're not part of them, I heavily suggest that you subscribe to everybody's channel. So let's keep moving on now. Fernando, I see that something is on the tip of your tongue that you want to tell us about. What's going on?
Well, I wanted to talk about CNN and Jake Tapper's interview with Bolton. Basically, jumping and accepting that he himself has had hands in running coups and changing governments in different countries. There's so many things that jump on my head when I saw this. Number one, first, and kind of to honor Jake Tapper and his show, the State of the Union, it shows the State of the Union, how divided they are, to the point that the rivals on the right and the rivals on the left, they're cornering each other at the point that rats are jumping ship. Now people are just doing whatever they can to try to save this person, try to save their own skin, but it's not working. But the second thing that I want to draw your attention to, the viewers, is where are we when somebody can just say out loud that they have organized coups around the world with impunity? There will be no consequence to the United States for these actions. There hasn't been and there won't be. And this is what makes me sick about it. This is really extremely disheartening for anybody out there. We all knew that that was true. We all knew that all these coups were organized by the United States. But to have somebody say like, yeah, I had a hand in this, and this is why I can tell you that Trump was not running, was not trying to well, steal the election in the United States. But for him to actually say that, that short clip on CNN will live forever. And I hope that there is a catalyst for dropping any kind of support for the United States. My question has always been who, where, and when. Who, where, and when are we going to move the rug from under their feet? And I can see all these changes around the world, as you were mentioning, Alex, all these leaders changing, all these horrible things taking place with assassinations and whatnot. Something is moving. Something pieces of the chessboard are moving, and they're moving in a certain direction. And I don't know if I am hopeful or scared, but I would listen to what you guys have to say in terms of how do you read everything that's taking place. Um, American exceptionalism. We're gonna have to put an end to that, man.
I appreciate your words, Fernando, and I just want to say this entire community has actually started because either A, we felt that, especially Asia, but not only that, China needed a voice. In 2019, when I started my YouTube channel, it was it was basically designed to kind of give the viewer, or give at least people that are watching these platforms, another outlet to find out information. And I can easily say that every person that is on this panel tonight is doing it for you, the viewers, for us to get that message out there. What do we get in return? Well, we get a fair amount of flack on some of our comments from people that actually don't want us to do that. And that should say enough in its own right there. I have a gentleman on here tonight, AJ, and if you guys are not familiar with him, AJ, you can tell the viewers why you started your channel. It's very interesting.
Sure. So I actually work for the government, and I'm a civil servant, and I work for the IT department. And yeah, so I just got very disillusioned. Suddenly, one day, Trump came into power and decided to be anti-Chinese, and obviously Britain, being Britain, absolute poodles of America, decided to follow the same path. They did a they kicked out Huawei, which was absolutely shocking because I had a Huawei phone at the time, so it affected me directly. And even though there was no evidence that Huawei had any spying stuff, I work for the government. I know that they did a very comprehensive security check on Huawei systems, and everything came back negative. There was
The
no
opposite.
issues whatsoever with Huawei. And because Trump said so, Trump called Boris one day and said, "Look, you got to get rid of Huawei." And Boris, being Boris, said, "Yes, sure, sir. Whatever you say, sir." Um, so yeah, I just got very disillusioned with the British government, and I could have done two things. I could have quit my job and got another job, but I decided to stay in the government because obviously I can get inside information. But this is why I have to keep my identity secret, because I can get inside information, but I can also say I can basically talk about political stuff without fearing of getting the sack as well. So going back to your question, I mean, you said that when did this all start? When did this all go wrong?
AJ, that I heard every word of that last statement. Wow. Okay, keep going, sir.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I mean, my impression. I mean, your question when you mentioned that when did it all go wrong? When did it all start? I think it's been a series of foreign policy mistakes that um, it's come from America mainly, and it goes all the way back to, this is as far as I can remember, based on my age and what I can remember. It all started with obviously George Bush Senior, when he went to Iraq War without a UN resolution. So he bypassed the UN, went there unilaterally, and things changed since then. Obviously lied about it, killed 1 million Iraqis at the time as well. There has been no blowback to him, and then his son went in afterwards as well. And it's basically one foreign policy disaster after another. And obviously George Bush, the son, is an absolute nutcase. And I've noticed that in terms of leadership around the world, each generation of leaders that are coming through, they seem to be more and more dumber than the last one. And I think that's the issue, really. I think you know, long gone are the days where you used to have a leader who's very strong and very intellectual and knows about the world. Those days are gone now. And by each leader. And now Biden, we are at the bottom of the pile, absolutely bottom of the pile when it comes to Biden. That guy he wouldn't be a leader in a third world country, let alone one in America. And I think every single president who was there, he's made foreign policy disasters. Trump has obviously started this trade war with China, and the world's economy is a very fine-tuned machine. And once you start messing around with this machine, once you start taking the pegs out of the machine, and things stop working, and then the whole world's economy will stop working as well. So since Trump obviously started this trade war with China, and then you realize there's all sorts of issues happening around the world. That he banned semiconductors, equipment sales to China. He put all these Chinese companies on the blacklist, and then suddenly the world started having issues, supply chain issues. Obviously, one thing led to another. Things got worse and worse, and then you had the COVID stuff happening as well. And I don't blame any leader during the COVID situation, but what I do blame them for is this reckless money printing that they had done. And it's not just America, but also Britain as well. Reckless money printing. And Britain is probably the worst in terms of money printing. Britain follow America whatever they do. So if America prints money, Britain will also print money. The difference is America's dollar is a reserve currency. So what America does when there's an inflation, it spreads to the rest of the world because the rest of the world uses the dollar for goods and oil and gas. So inflation spreads to the rest of the world. The problem with Britain, the pound is not is not a reserve currency. So when you print loads of billions and billions of pounds, the inflation stays in UK. And it's not like UK uses the euro, it doesn't use the euro. So the pound is basically diluted in UK. And this is why we are getting inflation of over 100%. So when the government says to the people, inflation is only 10%, it's a lie. Because when you go to the supermarket, yeah, a tub of butter cost £2 6 months ago. Now it's costing £6. Your gas and electricity prices have gone double or triple in certain areas. So it's gone over 100%. When something doubles in price, it's 100%. And when something triples in price, it's 200%. So they're lying to you when they say it's only 10%. And Britain is going to be seriously suffering from all of their issues. The problem with Britain, they follow America's lead. So when America has a really poor leader and they make ridiculous decisions, Britain seems to follow. And Britain has got some extra stuff other countries don't have. For example, Brexit. The trade with Europe is literally gone to zero. And Britain doesn't have anyone to trade with anymore. They can't have a free trade deal with America because America said no. And so we're basically being poodles of America for no apparent reason. So this is why we have leaders who don't really think globally, who don't really think independently. Boris is an absolute puppet. He has sold this country to the wolves, and we are all suffering for it, unfortunately. And this is why Boris is now gone. He should have gone sooner. The problem with Britain is British people are being kept really, really stupid. British people are hooked on Love Island. British people are hooked on social media, reality TV. So British people don't really go out there looking for geopolitics. They don't look at geopolitics news. They only see what they hear on social media. Obviously, when you're on Twitter and you get fired with all sorts of false information about Russia and Ukraine. Russia's the bad guy, Ukraine's the good guy. Russia's evil, Ukraine's good, China's evil. You get bombarded with hundreds and thousands of messages on Twitter, on social media. You're not allowed to have a voice. If you speak up against it, you get cancelled. And we know how
Yes.
it happens. All of us have had
Yes.
our accounts banned at some point. You are not allowed to speak against the narrative, and this is happening in the West. This is happening in UK, in America. This is how they control the people they get these people hooked on reality TV shows, on useless information, keep them
Mm.
dumb, keep them brainless, so they can get away with their shit basically. And this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that over the years it's just getting worse and worse.
Well, I'm not going to pull you away from that. I'm just going to kind of go into a comment that was made here from a person. I put the quote up on there by Subculture. We should be his or her is statement is saying we should be talking about what is better life for all rather than who did what all the time. There is no end to that. Here's where I have a little bit of an issue with that comment. Now, I appreciate you're making the comment on that show, and there's a reason why I brought it up into the forefront here. Unfortunately, when we try now, I want people to have a look at your screen. You have 3 people of the 4 in China trying to tell you that something is not right outside of the borders of this place. Now, I was outside of the borders here, guys, when the COVID-19 was happening. It was absolute chaos where I was. Now, how bad did it get? It got really bad. I was in Thailand, a few hour flight here away from Chongqing. When we were up around 60,000 cases a day reported, a lot of those were, I would say maybe it was double or even triple of that. But you've got to remember that's reported. Some people were at home, some people were whatever. But let me tell you guys a story here. And, to see the comments about we should be talking, about what is better life for all. It was the Chinese that actually saved my bacon. We use the term in Canada. It means to save my butt from really possibly or potentially getting COVID while I was in Thailand. I signed up. Now, here's the truth. I signed up to 7 hospitals in Thailand. I was told, sorry, sir, Thailand people first. Sorry, sir, Thailand people first. Okay, I lost faith in that. I went to my Canadian embassy, which was 15 minutes from my house. They said, sorry, sir, please check with the local hospitals. Well, let me give this to you as quickly as I can. I decided to walk into a hospital that was vaccinating their own citizens, not locally, but the Chinese were doing it in Thailand. And I begged and I pleaded with the lady. I said, I have an opportunity to go to China. Can you help me? I'm willing to pay for the vaccination, just like everyone. I'm not looking for a free handout. And at first she says, listen, I've got to check with the quota. I'll do what I can. If somebody doesn't show up or if somebody has left, I will call you. Well, thanks to the high heavens that lady answered my prayers. And a week later, I was vaccinated. What is wrong with the world when situations, I'm not the only guy that had this situation, but something is disconnected. Why are all these embassies around the world for? What are they there for? What is Canadian Embassy doing in Thailand? Besides having a picnic on Canada Day every July 1st of each year, which you got to pay to get into. What are all these embassies doing? What are all some of these media outlets doing in these countries? I'm kind of surprised the BBC is still allowed to be in Russia. I'm still surprised that they're broadcasting some of their stuff here in China. Guys, help me out with this.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When people try to comment about COVID response and the zero COVID policy that China has, they fail to see a very important thing that Mario and I discussed in one of our videos the other day. When you're trying to ponder, okay, what is the cost and benefit of zero COVID policy? Well, the benefit is you can save lots of people. In China alone, 150 million elderly that hadn't got vaccinated yet are at risk of getting these new variants, this new Omicron and this new one that's just entering China. Those people are at huge risk. So that's the benefit of the zero COVID policy. What is the cost? And as I laughed with Mario, I said, like, who cares what the cost is? I mean, China is willing to do whatever it takes to protect its people and to protect you and me and Mario and whoever is here. There is no price to saving the lives of people, and that's a mentality that I don't understand why the West cannot understand it. And I don't even understand why Tedros would attack it or criticize it or question it. Can you not see the 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 value, the virtue of this approach? That is absolutely, without a doubt, the biggest difference that I see in the Western countries, countries that are not following China's approach to COVID, and China itself. And we get criticized, we get told that this is not sustainable, that this is not going to work, but they don't understand that China 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 knows that they don't know a lot of things, and one of the things that they don't know are the effects of long COVID. This is something that they do not want to mess around with. They do not
Good.
want to learn the hard way. So
Just saw
it is best not to get it. It's best to do
Yeah.
everything they can to protect the people.
Yeah.
And everybody gets annoyed with the testing and with the apps and with this and with that. But I always tell the people that were in quarantine, for example, in Shanghai, think about what you're doing. You're saving lives. You're doing it to save people's lives. That's what you're doing right now, sitting in front of your TV watching Netflix. You're saving people's lives. So see, look at it that way. But Mario, you wanted to say something?
um, 1,000 things. Yeah, too many things. Yeah. So you know, everything is just a balance. It's just a balance. You say, oh, I value my individual freedom. Okay, well, your individual, great, good. So do we. Everybody does. But your individual freedom comes with a responsibility to the people who are around you. And also, your individual freedom means you can, oh, I want to behave the way I want to behave. Well, yeah, okay, as long as you understand that that comes with consequences. So there's responsibility and consequences that come with the freedom. Okay, so let's take a scenario. I'm going to be more inconvenienced than you. All right. Oh, well, that bothers me. I don't want to be more. Well, I am. Well, I'm going to be more inconvenienced than you. Okay. Well, what are you talking about, Mario? Well, like every 3 days, I have to go take a COVID test because some authority person somewhere, whether it's my boss or my wife or my mother-in-law or the government, told me I have to. Okay, so I don't have a choice. Oh, so I live in an authoritarian government country and I'm not free. Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so now every 3 days I have to go get a COVID test. Okay, but nobody's in the hospital here. So, hello, in your countries right now, there are somewhere around tens of millions, I don't know the exact number, people who are in the hospital with severe COVID symptoms. Now, that's not the people who don't, I got COVID and I'm already, everybody I know got COVID and they were fine. Yeah, that's right. That's right. 85% of the people you get it. It's hopefully not that bad, but it's the other 15 to 20% who end up in the hospital. And then it's the other 2% who end up dead. Okay. And you say, well, what about those people's freedom? Okay. See, so my inconvenience is protecting. You have tens of millions of people with severe COVID in the hospital, and you, right now as we speak, and you have 5 million COVID deaths. We don't have any. Anybody in the hospital with COVID. We don't have any deaths. Do
Mary,
you understand? I paid for that. My freedom, my inconvenience, my COVID test every 72 hours, everybody's pays for that. I'm happy to pay for it. I'm happy to pay for it.
Well, I mean, guys, this whole VAX thing is controversial. Some people are for it, some people aren't for it, and we can understand that. Everybody has their opportunity or their rights to say yes or no to that. Some countries are more strict than the other. But let's move on with the
Alex, Alex, China does not mandate the vaccine.
Of course they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they
Right.
don't. You know,
So
I just got
the oppressive authoritarian government, and we're not having it. And there's no arguments here at all about mandating the vaccine. All those arguments are happening back in the free democracies.
Hmm.
Can I also answer that question as well before you move on?
Sure.
So it was a question to the last gentleman who you put on the screen saying, why don't we talk about the good stuff instead of
Yes,
the
sure.
bad stuff? So I live in UK, and since all of this stuff that's happening about China, anti-Chinese stuff, I have not seen one single good article about China. I have not seen
No, you won't.
an article about, China has taken out 800 million people out of poverty. China is building high-speed rail links all over the country. They are building high-speed rail links to countries like Laos and building a BRI. They are the world's biggest renewables energy producer, and also, so many great things about China. And I've not seen one article from the Western media, from Western politicians, from Western YouTubers, or ordinary people from the street. So that question goes both ways. You need to ask that question to the West mainly. Why don't we see more good things happening rather than the bad things? The problem is people don't want to hear the good things. I think a lot of people.
No. That's not the
AJ,
problem.
sorry, I have to tell you something. Whenever mainstream media is cornered into writing something positive about China, they always tag the at what cost. And people think that we're joking about it, but you go back and you read all the articles. Oh, China is curing cancer too fast, but at what cost? Oh, China is, but at what? Everything is at what cost?
Yeah, yeah.
Everything is, what is the cost of China doing something that we cannot do
And
in our own countries? So
even if they write
to address,
articles, yeah, I mean, they use wordings like, even if they try to write a nice article about China, they'll put wordings like Chinese regime or totalitarian regime. They'll use these
Correct.
words to give people the negative view, so they
Correct.
won't say anything good, or
That's right.
Mhm.
this question that we have in this particular show, which is politicians under pressure. I think what's happening is we are getting to the point of no return. The system that is in power in the West, particularly all following America, they use legalized bribery to elect their president. I want anybody watching this video to answer this question for me. Do you really think Joe Biden is calling the shots? America is defined
no
in
way.
one word. Do
There's
you
no way
really
he's running.
think that man is running the show? Do you think he's actually having all the meetings, making all the decisions? Do you really think a man who's clapping at a G20 meeting and shaking hands with people who are not there is really calling the shot? And I'm not being an a hole. I'm just asking a direct question. Do you really think that that's the person? So who's calling the shots? And that's what leads you to the point. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't. It's all a show. It's all there to give you the idea that you have a choice. Oh, I'm pro this. I'm pro that. But in the end, they're doing whatever they need to do. Those contributors, those donors, those PACs and MICs, and all those companies that give money to these campaigns, they're going to ask for their return. They're going to ask for the return on investment, and that's where you get the policy that you get. You get one way or another, you get the Supreme Court reversing the EPA. Why on earth would you defund something that is designed to protect the environment? What's the point on doing something like that? Um, so that's where we are. The gig is up. They've been playing this game of fooling the voters and the people
Lost.
into, yeah, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay, is no longer going to be okay. We are, and this is where you kind of appreciate Trump. Trump was very transparent in his in his vulture mind, like, I'm gonna get this, we're gonna get the. He would just spout whatever you should not be saying, kind of like what Bolton did. But that was transparent about him. You knew that it was all about taking advantage of other countries and overriding this and overriding that, and this is not beneficial for us, and these guys need to pay more for NATO. So that's something that we can all appreciate in terms of transparency when it comes to Trump. But that's only the crystal, that's the facade. All these corporations, all these billionaires and trillionaires, they don't give a damn about minimum wages or inflation and whatnot. They are preparing for what's coming next. And you and I, we're all just passengers on this vehicle. We get to see a little bit of the symptoms and the reflections and the shadows of what's taking place. But they are way ahead of us in terms of understanding where this is going. So the pressure on these politicians is more, the fuse is running out of space. This is going to blow.
Well, interesting. Let me add something to this. I think this whole situation with China has been brewing for a long time. And I'm going to go way back to when the first NATO invasion happened in Yugoslavia.
Yep.
And I'm going to use that as a textbook to where we are headed. Now, they got away with it then. They managed to go into a country and drop, listen to this, guys, more bombs in Yugoslavia than any other war to date. How bad did they blast that place up? They blew it into smithereens. 78 days of aerial bombardment. I got a story to tell you guys about this. I went to that place 2 years after that happened. And as a Canadian, we used to be proud traveling the world with our flag on our backpack. Well, I got a reality check. I flew into Belgrade. I toured around the city. And I walked up and I decided maybe I'll go for a drink with a friend of mine. And I walked up to a bar and a lady said to me, "I'm sorry you're not going to come in here tonight, sir." And I said, "Why?" And she says, "You're American?" I said, No, honey, I'm not American. I'm a Canadian." And she said, "Even worse." Oops. And I paused and I said, "I'm confused." Wow. She said, "I'll make a deal. Why don't you turn around, walk 250 meters behind you, look to your left, and if you're cool with that, you come back and you can have any table in this bar." So it was, 8 o'clock in the evening. I walked 250 meters. I turned to my left on the street and I saw the biggest Canadian flag hanging from a bombed out building with a black question mark, "Why Canada?" I headed back to my hotel room and went to the hotel bar, and these big Serbian guys, they're big guys. They're built to fight. And he said to me, "You look like you seen a ghost there, young man." And I said, "Yeah, I saw my Canadian flag hanging from a building." He says, "Boy, oh boy, you had fast jets. Are you aware that your country did almost 70% of the bombing of our country?" Well, there you go, NATO. There you are. So as Canadians, we are not always welcome everywhere in the world. When we collude with other nations and get involved in business that we simply don't understand or simply are not knowledgeable enough, we should use our sovereignty of our country and believe in what we believe in. But what's happened to these countries, we've just seen it happen in the last couple of weeks in Sweden and in Finland. I am not sure that the viewers are aware of this, but if you're Swedish or you're from Finland, 2% of your GDP is gone.
Will go to NATO
for generations.
Yep.
Why? It's to make you NATO compliant. And NATO compliant means buying hardware from the United States of America. Now, trust me, I've got nothing against the United States of America. Heck, I used to love traveling down to that country all the time. But I've had enough. And yeah, behind me here is China. That's right. I'm a Canadian here in China. I have people saying, Alex, how can you stay in this country? Well, guess what? I'm living some of the best years of my life. And I'm going to pass the mic on to some other gentlemen. I just wanted to get that off my mind.
I wanted to mention something very, very briefly on the origin of all these problems. I think that China does something very differently from many other countries, is that they don't allow uncontrolled capitalism. They put limits on capitalism. They don't let corporations rule the country and make decisions that are going to be good for the profits and good for the bottom line and good for the stock market and the shareholders, but bad for society. I am the victim of a reform that killed an industry worth billions of renminbi, if not billions of dollars, the education industry. Why? Because there were people treating it like a Ponzi scheme. There were people stealing money from students and parents. There were people doing things. They were rotten, absolutely rotten. Obviously, not everybody, but the vast majority. So you gotta appreciate for a second the, may I say, cojones of a president to come and say, like, no more of this industry. These billions of dollars of industry, we're not going to have it anymore. It is not fair for the families. It's not fair for the competition in the top spots in universities, because those families who have money, then they can send their kids to a special tuition, and then those are the kids that go to the good spots. No, it's going to be out of merit. So in other countries is the absolute opposite. Corporations dictate what kind of laws are going to be passed. The lobbying and all the bribes and all the, that's what you don't see here in China. And that's what makes China so different. And that's what makes it so hated. Like, hey, you're ruining the plan. How come you're so successful not doing things the way that we do? And as I said at the beginning of this video, China is attacked for doing things differently, for not letting capitalism run amok.
You know, Fernando, to add to that, and then we'll get on to Mario, and then over to AJ. I just want to add to something I want the viewers to think about. Here's a country I'm living in right now that hasn't been to war in almost 40 years. It's been building its military. But people keep talking about, you know, the big military that the United States has and all these other countries. Keep this in mind. They've been building this for 40 years, and they haven't been tested. I hope they're not tested. But I don't think that you are going, or anyone is going to come into this sovereign country and push them over so quick. I think what we are seeing now in this world is there is an equal here. There's an equalizer. And for some reason, they feel that they can pull parts of this country to try to destabilize it, but it's not going to work. The long game is being played. And Mario, over to you.
Yep, it's not that. This is exactly the point. I unfortunately, this live stream could go for 6 hours. Now I want to try to get to some. I want to try to get to some specific points here. I've been looking through the comments. I'm seeing some fantastic comments in there. A couple of really stupid ones too, but mostly great comments. Number one, on the vaccines, I want to point out a couple things real quick. Yes, we now know, and The Economist doesn't like to, magazine does not like to say good things about China. They're one of the China-hating Western media. So for them to admit it is a big deal. We now know that Sinovac 3 shot is equally effective as any mRNA. And we know that that's the case. We also know that Sinovac 3 shot is a traditional dead cell vaccine, with far less level of severe reactions and deaths from getting the vaccine. So these are the realities about the vaccine. So here in China, I'm fully vaccinated. I have no problem with it. Okay, I didn't want the mRNA vaccine because it's much more controversial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that was an important comment in that I wanted to go on. Now, let me again, the broad issues, we can go forever. We can go for hours. So let me not do that. Let me go to the three things I wanted to make sure I said tonight. Number one, this idea in China of lack of freedom and censorship. Every country has tons of censorship, and you're glad that they do. Okay, believe me, you're glad. You're glad your country has rules, laws, and regulations that limit your behavior. Trust me, you are. If you don't think you are, you're lying. Okay, you're just being ideological. Okay, every country has lots of rules and laws prohibiting you from doing and saying all kinds of things. Okay, if you're a kid in a school, you cannot stand up and just because you feel like it, tell your teacher he's a dumb fuck. You just and then sit back down. Okay, you can't do that in school in America or England or anywhere else. You'll get in trouble as a student. So you know what? It's called civility. It's called you have to behave yourself, right? So there's all kinds of rules and laws and censorship in every country because people need to be civil. Now, how we discuss civil, that's a whole nother story. Now, you hear things about censorship in China. So the two arguments that came up this week that really annoyed me because of the ignorance was about beautiful Chinese libraries loaded up with books, including Uyghur libraries. And then people said, oh, but it's too bad they don't allow any books in them. Okay, listen to me. All the major world's classics are in all the Chinese libraries. All the major world's bestsellers, meaning like business and motivational books like, Warren Buffett and Tony Robbins and whoever, whoever, all these guru people, right? All their best-selling books, they're all in all the libraries, translated and available, translated into Mandarin. So that's the true reality of it. Okay. And then someone turns around and says, but parts of those books are censored out if they criticize the government. Okay. Parts of those books are censored out if they say false things about the government. Well, I want to criticize China. For example, I want to criticize the Tiananmen Square massacre. Oh, you think you're criticizing a fact? No, China won't allow you to write that in the book because there was no Tiananmen Square massacre. Oh, now you know the truth. You see, but you think there was. No, there wasn't. Okay, and I don't know where to begin. 5 of the world's top Western top media, BBC, MSNBC, Reuters journalists who were on the ground in Tiananmen Square that day all reported that there was no massacre at Tiananmen Square. Therefore, it's definitely true. You with me? You see? So that's why that part of the book gets censored out if you want to publish it in China. You're not allowed to include policy. In allowing you to publish your book in China, we do not allow you to publish lies about China. So you will please remove those, and then we'll let you publish the book. To me, that's actually kind of nice, right? I mean, if you lied about me in the first place, I wouldn't let you publish my book at all. I'd tell you to go fuck yourself. You know what I'm saying? China's even willing to say, no, if you remove the offending lie, we'll let you publish it. To me, that's pretty reasonable. Okay. So that's point number one about censorship in the libraries. Point number two is about access to information. The idea that the Chinese government, the reason the Chinese government has, quote, all this censorship and more, quote, control than the West, and that's a lie also. They don't have more. They have different, but not more. is to oppress and control the people's thoughts. Okay, stop. I have a report, which I'm not selling right now. I'm just telling you, I wrote up a report, a research report, and I found that the world's top 75 most busy news and life websites, sites like CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, the Chicago Tribune, the LA Times, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Vogue, Catholic.com, Christianity.com, RollingStone.com, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. For 75 of websites like those top world websites are not in any way, shape, or form unavailable in China. So if all of those websites are available in China, obviously the Chinese government knows that. And if they're not banning or blocking them in any way, obviously they're not trying to control anybody's thoughts. I mean, any Chinese person can go to the CNN, all the websites that I just named, and you can read every liberal, wild, wacky article ever written in Rolling Stone magazine on going back to the 70s, like during the drug era and the hippie days, right? You can read all that stuff. If you could read all that, I guess the Chinese government isn't trying to oppress and thought control the Chinese people at all. Otherwise, they would be blocking all that stuff. So it's just a bold-faced lie. That's the second point that I wanted to make tonight. And the third, finally, is about this most recent thing. Again, any bad news is an excuse to demonize China, and it's just more lies. Typically, there's these YouTuber guys that are financial gurus, and they're extraordinarily good on the topic of finance. One of them is Johnny Bravo, and he's funny. The other one is Stephen Van Meter, and he's funny. And there's a couple of other ones too. And they're really good if they would just stay in their lane on finance. Okay. Then they start talking about China and they lose the plot. They start spouting ignorant nonsense. The China banking crisis is ramping up. Protesters can't get their money out of the banks, and they're referring to this 4 small rural banks in Hunan as if it's a broadening banking crisis in China, which it's not. It's 4 local Hunan rural branch accounts, and the people who were complaining didn't even have their money in what we all call standard bank accounts. They had their money in risk wealth management products. The money was held in those banks, just like my TD Ameritrade account holds my money, okay? But I could still lose all my money if I put it in a risk asset, and that's not TD Ameritrade's fault. They're just the ones holding my money. If I risk it and lose it, that's my fault. And that's what's happening in Hunan with these 4 rural banks, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the banking system. And I will stop there.
Thank you on that, Mario. We're going to get to AJ after I'm just done this little couple of updates I want to talk to you guys about. I did receive a message from a subscriber that is in Wuxi right now, saying that he's in lockdown. There's been a couple hundred cases of 5 million people. Just he wanted to let the viewers know it's not nice, but how the government takes care of everyone is absolutely amazing. We get food packages every day for free tests. Where else in the world? Thank you for that, Pierre. I really appreciate that. Another gentleman that sent me a message here, Cyrus Jansen. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with it. He took a snapshot out of the citizen test, become a citizen in Canada. And I just want to read something interesting in our citizen test here. Canada joined the international organizations such as the United Nations. It participated in a UN operation defending South Korea in the Korean War with 500 dead and 1,000 wounded. Canada has taken part in numerous UN peacekeeping missions in places varied as Egypt, Cyprus, Haiti, as well as in other listen to this, in other international security operations such as those in the former Yugoslavia. Wow.
Mm.
Isn't that an interesting thing to teach when you want to become a citizen? And the last thing I want to point out is why I think the some of the world leaders are under some serious pressure here. We just saw a $10 billion crypto case. I believe it was 3AC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. The founders have vanished and walked away from a $10 billion hole, apparently. And
Wow.
guess what? Governments, I mean, you go back 2008, if this was Bernie Madoff, it was the main headlines. But no one's in there. So,
Wow.
I mean, probably these viewers aren't even aware of that. And that just shows you that how crazy and out of whack this world is right now when headlines of $10 billion just get wiped off and
Yep.
we're on to the next. So, AJ, on to you. You've been so patient listening to us. You have the floor, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about a few things that, first of all, Mr. Mom raised as well. You talked about Tiananmen Square, and I just want to give an example how sanctions have backfired then and they are backfiring now. Back then, the whole of the West sanctioned China, and they put an arms embargo on China at the time. So China was not allowed to buy any military weapons from anybody in the West or their allies or their friends. So that kick-started the Chinese military adventure back then. And now you have now you have Chinese aircraft carriers, fifth generation fighters, a space program. You have submarines. You have ships. You know, so looking back, I bet all of the Chinese are now looking back and thanking the West for those arms embargoes and sanctions. And you see the same thing happening now with Russia, with all of these Western leaders sanctioning Russia without even thinking about the consequences. They sit around a circular room, they all raise their hands, frothing at their mouths, trying to outdo each other with their sanctions. So you have Ursula standing up saying, I'm going to sanction Russia with this, and Boris standing up, no, I'm going to do one better and sanction Russia with this. And they're all frothing at the mouth, getting excited. And now every single sanction they have placed on Russia has now hit them back. And you have people like Ursula standing up in front of the Europeans and saying these sanctions will hurt Russia. This will bring down Putin. This will bring down Russia. This will bring down the ruble. None of that's happened, except opposites happened. And the same thing has happened to China. And then, all of these arm embargoes in the 1980s and all these sanctions have basically kick-started China's rise. And, now Chinese doesn't need to buy any military equipment from the rest of the world. Most of the equipment is on par with the rest of the world, like the aircraft carriers with their fifth generation. So I wanted to kind of touch base with that first. Secondly, I wanted to talk about Canada. And yesterday, Zelensky said in his own words that Trudeau is a very weak leader for Canada. And so you have people like Zelensky who are taking money from the West, who have literally sacrificed themselves for Ukraine, sacrificed themselves with these sanctions, cutting ties with Russia and the rest of the world, sacrificed their people, bringing up inflation. And now you have people like Zelensky calling Trudeau a weak leader. And he called him a weak leader because Trudeau has agreed with Germany to basically send them the parts that will fix the gas pipelines. And these parts were affected by the sanctions, and Germany had been pleading with Canada to release them and give them back. So Canada obviously yesterday agreed to give them back, and Zelensky doesn't like it. So you have these little people, Zelensky, who are like little beggars, where you give them money, and it's not enough. It's never enough. And now you have them insulting these world leaders, thinking you're a weak leader, you're this, you're that. And he's done the same thing with the German leaders. He called Scholz lots of names. He called the foreign minister of Germany loads of names as well. And it's absolutely ridiculous how Zelensky gets away with that. And the only reason he gets away with it because they have built Zelensky into such a godlike figure, coming onto all of these parliamentary video feeds all the time, and they make him sound like he's some sort of god. And these Western leaders are not allowed to say anything bad about him, but he's allowed to say whatever he wants about these Western leaders. And one more thing about Canada, I mean, Justin Trudeau has, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not Canadian. He has sold his soul to the devil, to the United States. I mean, I'm hearing stories about Canadian planes going into North Korean borders, but people don't realize North Korean borders are borders with China. So obviously China's not going to be happy about Canadian airplanes flying around the Chinese borders. So the
I'm
Chinese are
there.
basically, yeah, and the Chinese obviously intercepted those Canadian warplanes, and the Canadians are
AJ,
like, oh, we're started complaining.
AJ,
Sorry, God, yeah,
AJ, I got it. No, yeah, I have to tell you, you just mentioned about China being on the border of North Korea. I'm right there. I live in Shenyang in the northeast of China, my wife's hometown. And
yeah,
Shenyang is a 3-hour drive straight down south Liaoning province to the border of North Korea to the city called Dandong, which is
right,
where the United States forces, the United Nations command under MacArthur,
yeah,
bombed the Yalu River. And I
yeah.
went there. I was
Wow.
there I'm only 3 hours from the North Korean border here in Shenyang. And I was in Dandong. It's really something. So you mentioned that. I wanted to mention that. I think
Yeah,
the
exactly.
readers,
And it's not,
the listeners
yeah,
would
and it's
like to listen, hear that,
sure.
you know.
So it's not just Canada. Obviously, Canada's been sending planes along the borders. You have Australia doing the same thing. You have British sending the warships. So America are using these small countries to basically poke the dragon, as they say. And you mentioned NATO as well. And NATO is not really an organization. It doesn't really have its own leadership. It's just an extension of what America wants, really. It's all full of American weapons. Stoltenberg is not really a NATO leader. He's just a puppet on a string. And America is just using NATO to expand its military, for its military complex. Obviously, if you join NATO, you have all of these list of things you need to follow. For example, you need to buy all of these American weapons. You need to get them
You got to
linked up.
become NATO compliant.
You got to be NATO compliant, and that's billions and billions and billions we're talking about. And Finland and Sweden will have to start again, because Finland and Sweden do not have American weapons. They have been building their own, so they're gonna have to throw all of that away and buy F-35s, buy all of these American weapons.
AJ, they've been sending it to Ukraine. They don't have
Yeah,
to
that's
throw it
right.
away. It's on its way.
That's true. And NATO, they're
We
just using NATO. Now they're talking about having an Asian NATO, and South Korea and Japan are obviously putting their hands up, saying, "Yeah, we want to be the first Asian NATO." And South Korea has already taken steps to joining NATO. I believe they have added a cyber warfare unit in South Korea, and it's I just don't know what they're playing at. I mean, you have a conflict going on in Ukraine, and yet at the same time they are poking the dragon as well on the Pacific side, and it's just crazy how these globalists, these neocons, think that they can fight Russia and China at the same time. It's absolutely ridiculous how they're thinking. I mean, it's absolutely crazy behavior. I've never seen anything like him in my whole life.
It's worse than it's
talking
ever
about
been.
talking about the pressure that a lot of international leaders are experiencing, going through. I have to draw attention to social media, to places like YouTube, places like Twitter, where regular people can actually share what they experience, share what they know, challenge rhetoric from Western media, and bring them to people so that they have another perspective to what they're hearing. And we can go on and on and on and on in these topics. For example, uh, PL in Ukraine. For example, the people who are making videos about Xinjiang, people contesting and standing up to huge media corporations and governments and institutions like Amnesty International, like ASPI, like human rights, and said like there is no genocide going in Xinjiang. That's something that I don't know how powerful that is, but it does get in the heads of people. What these people are telling us, what Mario is telling us, what Daniel Domberlin is telling us, what Alex is telling us, what I'm telling people, in a way, makes people think, hold on, isn't it possible that all these companies that do business in Xinjiang abide by Chinese law, abide by international law, and abide by the laws of their own countries? So where is the human rights violations? Where is the forced labor? Where is the genocide? So I think that a lot of pressure is coming also not only to the leaders but to those who were accustomed and used to have the power of communication. Now that power of communication is split into so many different voices that start to chip away at the message. You look at a person like Joe Rogan that has a larger viewership than CNN, than Fox News, than so these platforms are becoming a point of pressure for leaders and other entities like mainstream media. Um, I I want to say one last thing about leaders under pressure, and I want to ask AJ what his feeling is. Monarchy. What is the future of monarchy when the day comes that the queen passes? Um, what is your take?
I am pretty sure that nobody in UK wants King Charles as the king, and I think soon as that happens, people will start clamoring around UK asking for the end of the monarchy. They can tolerate the Queen, and obviously it comes down to history, and she's been around for ages. But as soon as she dies, King Charles or Prince Charles right now would be a very bad choice, and he's obviously the next in line. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants him to have any source of power, and I think things will change by then. And I think people are realizing now, especially during these times, how much money the royal family are taking and not giving back. For example, during this time when people are struggling, the Queen is still making billions in profit, still taking a lot of our tax money. Um, and and people in these economic times, every single penny counts. So when people see all of these money going here, money going there, they're looking to cut certain areas of things. And so people are like, you know what? I don't want to pay my BBC license fee, which I'll get into in a bit. I don't want to pay for the Queen. I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to pay for that. You know, in tough times, people look at their purse strings and they look at where the costs are going. But I think as soon as Prince Charles becomes King Charles, I think things will turn, and you will see a lot of protests asking for the end of the monarchy because we're just paying them for no apparent reason. People said that they do a lot of charity work and stuff. I haven't seen them do any charity work. I don't see any of them going around the world and doing charity work. I mean, Princess Diana did that. Um, Maybe Harry did that at some point with Meghan Markle, but they've been kicked out as well. So I just don't see the monarchy lasting. To be honest, I don't see them going past 10 more years. I think it's going to be the end of them.
Mm. The hypocrisy of so many leaders around the world, monarchy included, with Prince Edward not being asked to pay for his crimes and for or to at
Mm,
least go to court and defend his case in these allegations with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein.
yeah.
That is something that has got the whole world upset about the monarchy. Julian Assange, the fact that the UK just allowed to extradite him, well, he is waiting for that, but that's been passed. That is something that has more than half the world upset about the UK and their hypocrisy.
Yeah,
When
of
you
course.
have, for example, people in Western media saying like, ah, some Chinese are happy about um, Shinzo Abe's assassination,
Yeah.
and I was saying like, okay, let me play you this clip of
Yeah, for very good
Hillary
reason.
Clinton, Hillary Clinton
Mm,
clapping
yeah,
and celebrating. We went, we saw, and he died.
yeah,
Yay! Like, sorry, so you're celebrating, you're assassinating leaders in other countries, but the Chinese cannot, I
Do the
wouldn't say
same.
celebrate, but cannot be happy that
Oh no,
somebody
no,
who
no.
celebrated the
Don't,
murder, the assassination, the killing of hundreds of thousands of Chinese
right.
during the massacre in Nanjing. I mean, I understand that. I don't
Yeah.
understand Hillary Clinton clapping and assassinating a leader. This hypocrisy and this double standard, when you hear, for example, Blinken saying, "Oh, we need to deal better with China. We need to rebuild our bridges and whatnot," and turns around and slaps sanctions, or turns around and just promotes and provokes Beijing by talking about Taiwan independence. Things like they are they have really no face. They have no face, and it's taken. It's getting to the point where it's just not gonna hold anymore. It's just not gonna hold anymore. You can't play China like that. You can't just say a good thing here and then a good bad thing.
yeah,
And again, going back to social media, the fact that I can tweet at the ambassador of America here in China and say like, "Hey, what say you about Bolton saying that you guys have organized coups around around the world? What say you, Blinken? What say you, Mr. Burns?" These kind of things um, are new, and they put a lot of pressure on people. I'm not saying I do. I'm saying when you compound everybody doing these things, it becomes a point of pressure because PR is PR. They need to handle the public.
I would like to talk about something you mentioned earlier, Fernando, about YouTubers getting the message out. Um, I just want this audience that we have today to understand that in the future, we will bring Patrick Lancaster on to one of our live streams. I spoke with Patrick last night and talked to him about who would be on the show today. And he's quite happy to come and talk about that. For all you guys, Patrick was one of the first YouTube channels I followed to try to get the other side of the story that was going on in the Ukraine. He's a independent, crowdfunded freelance journalist, and in 2013 and 14, he moved to Ukraine. He's an ex-military from the United States of America. If you're not aware of him, let me tell you this: it will be on record one of the most covered wars by an independent journalist ever on this planet. There is over 8 years of archives on what has happened in the Donetsk People's Republic since 2014. Mark my words, his stuff is going to be used in a future tribunal, whether
yep,
it's for this side or that side. If you want to see it, Patrick Lancaster channel is still up on YouTube. I reached out to Patrick about 6 or 7 years ago. I flew down. I traveled to Transnistria, which is going to be a very integral part here coming up. It's a breakaway part of Moldova, which is in between Moldova and Ukraine. It potentially could be the sealer on this whole deal if two gentlemen sit down at the table and work this out. But anyway, Patrick has agreed to come on a future show. So just to let everybody know that it's on this panel tonight, I'm extremely excited. I'm a good friend of his. If you haven't seen him post in the last 6 or 7 days, he is okay. He did write me a message about 4 hours ago that, Alex, please understand that the mobile network sometimes is not working, is what he told me. So anyway, I just wanted to let everyone know about that. Just to give you guys some quick background on Patrick, he was one of the first YouTubers I saw ever get demonetized. It was one of the first YouTubers that I ever actually donated to and understood that these guys and other gentlemen that are on this panel put our butt on the line. You know, we risk being demonetized, being deplatformed, probably on a not a daily basis, but probably on an hourly basis. Depends what mood Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, or some of the Silicon Valley companies wake up in the mood for, whatever the wind blows. But the beautiful thing is you can still see Patrick's channel on YouTube for the moment. He's been restricted to use PayPal. That's gone. In fact, zero crowdfunding platforms will accept him. Go figure on that one. And YouTube took him his demonetization away, I think about 7 or 8 years ago. So people that are saying he's doing it for money, give your head a shake. He's not. Okay, I'm going to go around this round table one more time here. I'm going to give every gentleman 2 minutes to say their last things that they want to say. And once again, a big thank you to AJ for coming up with this idea to bring us on the platform together. We did have a trial and run a couple of days ago.
Yep.
We had some echo problems, but I think we have massively improved that today.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
in the future, we have been in touch with some other bigger names that we will get here on the channel as well. But what a pleasure it is to hold the screen with you gentlemen tonight. I'm going to start with Fernando, then we'll go to AJ, end it off with the firecracker Mario there, and we'll say all our goodbyes after that. And don't forget to subscribe to everybody's channel here. Hit that like button. It is greatly appreciated. And once again, to all those people that gave super chats tonight on AJ's channel, he greatly appreciates it. Okay, we're going on to Fernando. 2 minutes, sir. And then on to AJ, and then on to you, Firecracker Mario, and then we're back to me for the close.
Well, all I want to say to you guys is get it very clear. Taiwan belongs to China. What you're going to be you're going to be seeing taking place over the next few months and years is going to be America trying to push for Taiwan independence. You're going to see the local parties trying to go for an independence. But you have to understand that this is all manipulation. This is all pushing China to react, and China will react. So, what is the responsibility that you and I have to stop this from taking place? And this is how you need to figure out what you can do locally with your congressmen, with your governments, with your organizations to make sure that you can push back on this event that we see coming. That's the ace of the sleeve. That's the card that they're playing. Once they're done with Ukraine, they're gonna go for Taiwan, and that's where everything is going to be decided. So I just want to stand here on the record to let everybody know that that's what's gonna happen. We all see it coming, and as foreigners living in China, those people are putting our lives at risk. If there is a conflict, we are at risk. Our families are at risk. So ask yourself, what can you do to stop that? Taiwan belongs to China. Thank you, Alex, for the opportunity.
AJ, on to you.
Thanks, Alex. So yeah, obviously this live chat is about leaders. So I'll basically finish on Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson has been a really, really bad leader for us, and all of his decisions have been ridiculous ever since he came into power. He started off with all of this Brexit. This Brexit was all his, by the way, his idea, and he pushed for Brexit. He came in and made Brexit happen. And one of the things that he should have done after Brexit, he should have gone to every single country around the world and set up trade links. Because he said, oh, Britain's going to be global Britain, it's going to be brand new Britain, we're not tied in with the Europeans anymore, which is fine. But then you got to back it up with trade links with the rest of the world. He's done none of that. He hired Liz Truss to do that, and we all know how badly she failed at that. So Boris Johnson was basically a leader, a lame-ass leader. He's sitting at home enjoying his power. He's done no work when it comes to Brexit. Then COVID happened, and there was a lot of money printing going on in UK and a lot of wasting of money. For example, they've wasted 36 billion on a track and trace program. 36 billion, and it doesn't even work. And that's how much money they were throwing away. They had a furlough thing, and a lot of companies were using fraud to take money out of the government as well. And then you have Russia, and obviously Boris Johnson literally placed all of these sanctions, and they have all boomeranged in UK. All of his actions have affected UK. And going back to Brexit, going back to global Britain, one of the main things he should have done, he should have set up trade links with China, because China is one of Britain's biggest trade partners. Instead of working out a free trade deal with China, free trade deal with Russia, if he did a free trade deal with Russia, he would have sorted out all of his energy needs. If he did a free trade deal with China, he would have sorted out a lot of economic needs. What he's done, he kicked out every single investment China had in UK. I'm talking about Huawei, I'm talking about nuclear power plants. And he's basically isolated Britain. He's isolated Britain from Europe, he's isolated Britain from China, he's isolated Britain from Russia, and not only that, he's isolated Britain from the United States, because Biden doesn't like him, and Biden and his administration have told Boris many times there's not going to be a free trade deal. So Britain has pretty much shot itself in its foot. Absolutely stupid behavior, stupid behavior. And now look at Boris where he is. I mean, there's obviously a scandal raised about some guy touching up other people, let's just say people, and they're using that as an excuse to kick out Boris. But everybody knows there's got nothing to do with that. I mean, that is just a small, excuse. The real thing is the Britain's economy. Inflation, like I said, has gone up by 200%. Do not believe anything the government says when they say it's 10%. Is everything's doubling in price or tripling in price. Mortgage rates have gone up. People are becoming homeless because they can't afford the mortgage. They can't afford rent. They can't afford everyday goods and stuff. And it's just his position has become unattainable, and he has to go. And this is why he's been asked to leave. Unfortunately, there's no alternative. It does look like Liz Truss is going to be taking over from all of the rumors and all of the stuff that's going on in the government, and all the rumors I'm hearing that she will be the next Tory leader. And if that happens, she's going to be much worse than Boris, much worse.
Well, thank you very much for that, AJ. And we'll go to Mario. Mario, are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the situation where about 6 months ago, and I was discussing this with Fernando, we hosted many episodes of the War in China show together, and I discovered my new back in Toastmasters 35 years ago. And the word that I discovered was apodeictic, and apodeictic is the opposite of rhetoric. Rhetoric is just crap. You're talking, but you have nothing to back it up. Ad hominem attacks, etc., etc. And apodeictic means something is evidently observably certain. And that's the standard that I use when I talk about things related to China. And I know a lot of us, we make that effort to adhere to that. So that means that it's not opinion. Oh, that's your opinion. No. When we say something about China, let's all do our best to remember this word apodeictic, which means that it's evidently observably certain. It's evident. You can see it. It's observable. It's certain. It's known. It's a confirmable fact, right? And along that line, then I follow up, and I end with the statement that I start with, which is China is now in the world the largest safe, stable, successful, capable, and civil country on the planet. And in the wrap up, if we had the time, we can go through that. Well, is it the largest? Yes. Well, how is it the largest? Is it the safest? Oh, yeah. Well, and by the way, when I say largest, safest, I mean like one of the top 3 in the world. Normally, when you talk about China being one of the safest countries in the world, it means it's like China right along with Singapore and 1 or 2 other countries out of the 250 countries that are on planet Earth. So this is the reality, and this is the true reality. It is the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, and simple country on the planet. And if we took our time to sit with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a couple of cold beers and talk through and talk about, well, how do we evidently, observably know that to be true? And the answer is it's really easy. It's very easily demonstrable to show how all of those things are true. And I want to end my comments on that happy note. We could go on and on and on. I won't. My pleasure to be here with all of you this evening, and we'll see you again.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mario. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the viewers tonight. A lot of big shout outs going out to D Wonders. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for sticking around in the chat box quite a bit here tonight. You've been pretty active. Hammer 88, thank you for that. For Movies, wonderful subscribers. Nice to see a great turnout on his channel tonight. Very awesome to see. It's been a very successful live stream here. We peaked out around about 725 live viewers. Not bad for the first shot at this, guys.
Yes.
And we will continue to grow coming on at a later time. I just wanted to say thank you again to AJ for coming on and putting your 2 cents forward, which I really appreciate. I had a great live stream with you a couple of nights ago, but we made up for our poor audio at that time. And I said I would bring you into the studio, and I think we've definitely come through with that. And once again, to everybody out there, this is an outlet for you as much as it's an outlet for us on this. We deeply love sharing our experiences and our stories here in China. Every person on this panel tonight, I commend you once again for giving these viewers a few hours of our time, and thank you, the viewers, once again. Don't forget to subscribe to everybody's channel here. For Mube's channel, he will drop a link in there. If you are watching this on replay, just scroll through it. You'll see our links in there, and subscribe to all of our channels. But once again, gentlemen, anyone forget anything? Or are we all good for tonight?
No, I just want to say it's been a pleasure, guys. Pleasure, guys, talking to
Same
you,
here.
to everyone. Really, I had a great time, and hope we should do it again. I think we should do it again very soon. Try and make it a regular thing. There's so much to talk about. There's, we only just touched the surface, and there is so much to talk about. Every single day there's news, major news. Every single day there's no rest at all. So yeah, it's great chatting with you guys, and yeah, look forward to chatting with you even more. So thanks for your time, and also thanks for inviting me to this chat.
Our pleasure. And everyone, again, thank you guys. And don't forget to share this live stream. You can post it on your Facebook or Twitter. Get it out. Get that message out to everyone. What a fantastic last hour, and a little bit more than that to spend with these gentlemen. What an honor, guys. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Alex.
You guys have yourself a great day, a great evening, or a great morning, wherever you guys are. You guys take care. We'll talk soon.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.